Opportunities don't happen, you create them. My friends, we see stocks are down for the day. Everything else is up. Now, this is our weekly review and forecast. So we're going to review what's happened over the week and try to forecast what we see as far as the setups go on where the charts may be going over the course of this next week. So what do we see going on? Well, the S&P 500 down for the day 0.76%. Now, as we look at these charts, we can, of course, see, and we go to the smallest chart to see what's been happening on the half days. That's 195 minutes. That's a half day in the market. What do we see going on there? Well, we see where the market most recently topped back on Thursday, the 15th. And as we see over the course of this week, things have been moving down. Today, down in the morning, a little further down in the afternoon, but ended up not as much down 0.76%. Now, as we look at the two-day chart, we can see where it's sitting right there on the weekly trend line. We still have a green candle on the weekly chart. We have seen the chart slow down before, slide sideways, and then pop back up. Is it going to do that again? It may not. We've seen it happen before where popped up, slowed down, and then went down. We're not into red candles yet on the weekly, but we are paying close attention to what's going on the two-day. And of course, what's already happened on the half day. Still above, though, on the half day, still well above the weekly trend line, but we are watching. If this week starts off, this next week starts off really moving down strongly and immediately reverts over to a red down candle, we'll pay a lot of attention to that. Now, one thing we don't notice, we did see higher than average volume last week. This week we see the volume is red, but again, doesn't mean it's going to be, we've seen red volume before, doesn't mean things are going to turn over, but it could be portending that. Okay, so we will watch, wait, and see. This has been an incredible trade for us so far. The jumping in point, the worst you could have gotten in that first week, not that you necessarily would have, but the worst point was 402.49. That's the high for that week. The next week definitely would be getting in at that, if not earlier. The worst point you could have got in, 409.70, of course, to where did we close this week? 433.21. Now, that's a big gain across the board. And of course, that's what we like to see. That's why we like the S&P 500. Unlike something like Bitcoin, you have on the S&P green to red to green to red to green to red. Almost all of these have given you, well, all of these that you see over the course of, almost a year, you see, have given you the opportunity to jump in and to capture a gain. That is the kind of chart we like. Let's look at the Qs. Same kind of thing on the Qs. We see the two on the two-day chart sitting right there, on the weekly trend line. We also see the half day close to that, ended with a doji. And again, not as down as much as the S&P, but we are paying attention. Of course, with higher than average volume last week, we did hit that high. Still green on the volume this week. We will be, like the S&P, watching to see if the up move will be ending over this next week. It may or may not. We'll be ready for it if it does. Now let's look at 20-year bonds. We called this green earlier, did we not? And of course, it's continued to go that way. Not super exciting, not really bounding up, but again, up for the day, 1%. We can see on the two-day chart with this weekly trend line, we're above that. We are above it also. Much bigger in the morning and then staved some of that off in the afternoon. We can see on the half-day chart going in the right direction. So we are still long on bonds at this point. We are cautious. What do we see about gold? Gold up a little bit for the day, 0.28%. We saw where gold was up more in the morning, then staved that gain off for the most part. We have a decent red down candle on the weekly chart, and we can see price on the 2-day and the half-day is going in the down direction. So we're, of course, short gold. Now, Bitcoin up again. We can see where when Bitcoin bottomed, and it has been climbing quite nicely. Nice stair steps, leveled off we saw on Wednesday, and then, of course, up Thursday and Friday. So it is nice to see, well, it wasn't really up on Thursday, but did go up on Friday. So we can see where it popped up and then staved off. These are Heikin-Ashi candlesticks. I can't remember yesterday. Was I want to say Bitcoin was up yesterday. But we do have a nice solid up week. We are using our 2-day to simply draw this trend line at this point. We'll be interested to see where and how Bitcoin starts off this next week. If it's going to continue to head up, or if we're going to have some kind of ceiling right here around the $31 mark. We've seen things pop up to that most recently on that week beginning the 10th of April. So we will be watching to see if Bitcoin is going to continue that climb. That is where we are as we end the week. Patreon members, sent out to you last night in the email, and of course everything we do we also load up at the Patreon page. But you have the 3-wave trades, the weekly vertical crossovers, and I'll be putting out for everybody what we released earlier in the week to the Patreon members, and that is, of course, charting cryptos, commodities, and currencies. Hope you enjoy the way we've added to that. Originally started off with just cryptos, then we added commodities for a little more fun with some real things that impact your life, like the cost of wheat and corn and coffee and oil and all those kinds of things. And then we added in currencies, a broad smattering of currencies, from the euro to the Swiss franc to the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, what else? Oh, the British pound and the yen. So again, fun stuff to look at, follow, and see if that is chartable. Those are ETFs that are just as easy to buy and sell as stocks. So something for you to potentially look at to practice trade. If you can track it, then you can trade it, my friends. I want you to practice trade as much as possible. That caveat always, we're not a stock calling service, we're not a currency or a Bitcoin or a bond or gold, precious metal service. We are an education service. I want you to practice with us. Learn how to do this by doing it. Practice trading it, fractionally trading it with a small dollar amount, maybe $100 when you think you're getting good. Then you can really test yourself and see how honest you've been in your assessment of your abilities. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.